Hello, hello. Headset time again. It's time for me to be incredibly disoriented as I start another art gripe. Mostly disoriented because I just used the bathroom, and boy, did I need to use the bathroom. Also, I guess, life in 2020 in general, but sometimes it feels like mostly the bathroom. Um, this time we're going to be drawing Purah from specifically Age of Calamity. Now, Purah is a character, you can see her little chibi form down there, was a character that existed in Breath of the Wild, and a few people, like myself, were like, ooh, cute character. I like that character. Even though she is an abomination against the Lord, of course. So we always wondered what exactly she would look like if translated into being the adult she actually was. Her backstory is that she did science to herself as an old lady, and that turned her back into a child, even though she does not actually look like a child. Even in the game, there are actually, children running around the villages, and they look nothing like that abomination. Her head is probably 3 or 5 times larger than the heads of any other character in the game, for example. So yeah, a lot going on there. But it's fine. We still like Purah. Alright, so in Age of Calamity, you can see up top there, she shows up and she actually has she looks like a person, like a human might look in this world. Not so much a tiny short stack goblin creature, which, losing all this, no, it's not a big deal. Alright, so there are several things that I'm going to talk about. The unfortunate reality of these things is, with the art gripes, the things that I should be talking about that are related to the drawing, from a video making standpoint, probably should be saved for the very end of the video, because they would be like the least engaging for a general viewing populace, I guess. But unfortunately, most of that is front end because of the nature of the fact that you're drawing it. So as a result, I probably should be talking about that now. But I'm also going to be talking about gameplay, so just hold on to your britches for that. And by the way, yes, I know britches is not a real word. It's supposed to be breeches. But no one says breeches, it's britches. You should know that. Alright, so as far as the drawing goes, I had great consternation with this particular drawing. And mainly because of the fact that I did not spend as much time as I should have working with the mirror version of the drawing's layout. I shall explain. Alright. And by the way, since my last art gripe, I've started doing all those little gripes, and those seem to have been doing fairly well. The FF8 one did not, as I kind of expected, but I still was amused by the fact that I made it. But one of my initial ones was about the weapon durability system in Breath of the Wild, so that'll come home to roost in a bit. Alright, so with this drawing, as far as the layout goes, I had an initial idea, and I did some of this. The primary and most of the line work I did on stream, on a Picardo stream, whenever I was watching Star Trek with Du Bois. And that was part of my problem in the first place. Something that I have learned over the years, especially with myself, is that if I feel like I'm being watched, if I feel like I'm being evaluated in some way, then I will try to escalate what I'm doing. So as a result, the product usually ends up being worse. In the case of drawing, especially in the case of drawing on stream, I end up rushing the primary a whole lot. I'm trying really hard to get as much done in as small of a time window as I possibly can, and so I end up screwing a lot of things up. Alright, second. There's been a lot of construction in the area lately, don't mind that. You probably didn't hear anything anyways. Trying to get this done as quickly as possible, again. Here I am complaining about it and then trying to squeeze in audio recording at the same time. So, in regards to this drawing, I feel like what I screwed up in this drawing is something that most people probably won't see because they'll clap their hand, ooh, pretty drawing, or, whatever. With me, this bothered me so much that I actually recorded like another 2 hours of me drawing this, and then scrapping all the progress. Which you will not see because I deleted it because the video was already long enough. This is already going to be like a 45-minute long video. So here, for example, I'm already starting what ends up sort of being the final line work, even though I thought at the moment that it was just going to be the primary, which is another way that this drawing ended up being really unusual. I should have spent the time doing another primary to get the general shape done. Most of my problem was the fact that the face did not look the way that I wanted it to look. And, it's fine. It ends up being fine. But to me, it didn't look enough like Purah. It looked too much like how I normally draw. And a lot of that is because of the fact that Breath of the Wild and this game by extension have this art style that is extremely flat for the most part. It has the same sort of conventions that anime typically has, where character features are incredibly flattened. They don't really have noses to speak of in most cases. Like the reference image that you see on screen right there, of her doing her hand thing that she does, throwing up the horns, is about as much geometry as I could find with her character model. Otherwise, most of the time, her nose is not the anime dot that usually you'll get from anime. It's the video game equivalent of that, where it's just a very small texture area. And that's it. Like, that's all that's going on there. So, as a result, if you're trying to do a pose that is, skewed, or, it's off to the side, it's scoped in some way, like it's rotated, then you sort of have to add that geometry, but you can't have it because the character model doesn't want it to be there. So, with Purah, since I wasn't drawing her straight on, I ended up having to do that too. And plus the fact that I'm drawing her at this angle of down looking up, that is always a problem, because there isn't a person alive in the history of the universe that has ever looked good being drawn down up. Every one of them is bad. All of them. Every drawing, every picture, every time that you've fallen in love with someone and then looked at them in bed and you just get a glimpse of looking up at their face as they look down upon you, you're like, ugh. That is natural. That's like the human brain is wired to see and be repelled by such things. Okay, maybe not this dramatic, but it's not good. Like, the human face does not look good whenever you view it from, like, chin up. So the more dramatic of a perspective that you get, it tends to be the uglier the actual result happens to be. And that's not really the fault of you, it's just how it be. That's how it goes, buddy. Okay, so, that combined with everything else resulted in a lot of problems. Because I was trying to do a very particular kind of perspective shot, and as usual with me in perspective, if I'm not using a reference sheet and I'm just making guesswork, especially if I'm on the clock trying to do something during a stream, it never works out the way that I want it to, and that is deeply frustrating to me and to no one else, because no one else even notices it. Oh well. But even now, as I'm looking at this picture, I can tell that she needs to be re-skewed in some way. Like, I actually spent probably not much time at all actually doing the body primary, and then I spent on the face probably about 3 or 4 hours just redrawing it over and over again, just trying to get it to look right. And I never could really do it. In the footage that I got rid of, we haven't gotten to yet anyways, it'll be after I get all this done, I redrew the face, I think, 3 or 4 times, and each one looked successively worse in different ways. Some of them looked a bit more cartoony. I was trying to simplify her face because at the time I thought that it was getting a little bit too Plague of Gripes, not realistic, but sort of realistic. You know, that thing. Like what it is now. Like, this is not realism or anything, but it's moving too far away from what the character art style actually is. Because I love to draw detail, and the more detail that you put into the body, the more detail you end up having to put into the face. It's just one of those things. So it was sort of just a case of me being me and trying to have it all. Getting a little bit too work happy, which is a problem I tend to have. I always feel the need to add details because I love cartoony looking character models, but at the same time I also really like things like cloth. I love the way that it falls on itself and it folds and things like that. But I also don't want to spend too much time drawing things like folds and, so on. So I always have this sort of intermediate result of the image looking sort of realistic in places, and other places it's incredibly not realistic. It drives me crazy. Like, it's one of those things no one else will probably ever notice or give a shit about, but that's just how it goes with me. That's just how I draw. The addition of the glasses being bitten was a page addition. Whenever I was starting the drawing, we were going to do the Trek stream because I was like, hey, you guys seem exhausted. Do you want to do this? I'm not as exhausted, but I will be. So I suggested it. And the question came back, what are you going to draw? And I said, well, I've been playing Age of Calamity because I'm trying to rush through it to get as much information about the game as possible so I can sort of do a full review of it within the scope of an art gripe, because I also want to draw Purah because I like Purah. And said, what are you going to have her do? What's she going to do? And I had this idea of, well, I don't think that the thing that she wears is actually a pencil skirt, but it sort of looks like one, and I love pencil skirts. Like, I really like pencil skirts. I like the look of them. I have this thing, like, the women that are the most attractive to me are... This is getting off scope. The women that are the most attractive to me tend to be ones that are very powerful and assertive and not I don't need no man, nothing like that, but I've described them before, like Y'shtola from Final Fantasy XIV, Hera from Star Wars, Kelly Briggs, and Botan from Yu Yu Hakusho, and just characters like that. I always enjoy characters that are, sort of fun, but they're also sort of serious. They're sort of, I guess, alpha women archetypes in a way. Not to get toxic on you or anything. But yeah, it tends to be, I really like characters that are like that. I don't remember why I brought that up. Oh, because of the pencil skirt. But the pencil skirt look sort of does that for me, where it gives this impression of, and here we go, here I go screwing up again. Here I go doing a fucky wucky again. See, I'm trying to get the perspective on this face right, because I know that I didn't get the perspective on the body right either. So I'm trying to do a perspective on the face, and it's getting screwed up, because I'm raising the eyes too much, and then I end up having to flatten them back out, recorrect them. Anyways, pencil skirts. So it sort of looked like she had a pencil skirt, and I like that. Even though it probably is like a more of a bodysuit thing. I have no idea what's going on with her. So I decided to just give her one. And my initial idea was, well, I'm going to draw her pulling down that pencil skirt and showing you, ooh, there's nothing going on down there. Nothing underneath. Woo, 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 ooh, woo. Because, horny on main, etc. So Paige wanted me to... Her initial idea was, what if she's doing that thing where she's biting her glasses? Because Paige is also horny on main. So as a result, I just threw that in there too, because she's got to be doing something else with those hands. I mean, she could be doing any number of things, but binding glasses is probably the most YouTube-friendly version of it. So here we are. So that's why she be like she is. That's how she do. Okay, so that said, you can tell the utter madness that I'm experiencing trying to fix this face. Because I kept saying over and over again while I was streaming, something about this is off, but I don't know what it is. I can't tell what it is. What have I done to this face? What is going on? What about this looks wrong? Because I was getting change blindness, and I've discussed this before. But the more that you work on something, it doesn't matter if it's a drawing or not. The more that you work on something, and if it's just slightly out of step, and you are making minor mistakes, and you get so focused on it that you just keep repeating those mistakes, or you can tell that something about it is off, but you're not sure what it is, you can get change blindness. Which means that no matter what you do to it, you can't really see what it is that you're doing to the overall product, or even to the individual things that you're working on. And here I think we skipped... Yeah. Skipped ahead a little bit. This is, I think I ended the stream at this point. Or did I? I think I may have ended the stream at this point, and now this is offline work. I can't remember. But as a result of getting change blindness, you really just have to stop and walk away from what you're doing and then come back to it the next day. So that's what I did. And I'm rubbing my temples right now because I'm remembering this, and it's just agony to me. And whenever I came back to it the next day, I discovered that it looked exactly the same. So my change blindness had not even gone away. Usually whenever I do that, I'll step away, come back and go, oh, that's why it looks the way it does. I never did this thing. But I didn't get that this time. So that was deeply frustrating, so I ended up waiting on it another day after fiddling around with it some. And giving up on it. And that's where my thrown away work came from, and then after that, I worked on it another day. Like, I'm giving myself a headache just thinking about this. And to skip ahead in thought a bit, adding color to the image will also move the proportionality of the model around some and make it look even stranger. Like, I'm looking down at the final version of the picture, like I can see it off to the side. And it looks a little bit different from this one. This one, she seems to be looking a bit more... like her head is tilted a little bit more up, but the fact that I added color to it, and this is mostly the same exact picture at this point. The line work is basically done, even though I don't realize it yet. In the final color version of it, she looks a little bit more like she's looking down. It's just one of those things, man. It's just one of those things. So you get the idea. Alright. So, I played Age of Calamity. This is where I'm gonna schism my video. We're gonna try to stop talking about my frustrations with probably nothing, and actually talk about the game itself. I've played several Musou games in the past. I am not big into them. The most fun that I've had with one up until this point was probably One Piece Pirate Warriors 3, I think it was. I think it's 3. I don't think it was 4. But I really enjoyed that one. And a lot of that is because of the variety of characters. It wasn't a perfect game or anything. But it had a pretty large variety of characters, and you could just do whatever you wanted to with it. The way that game, and I feel like most Musou games are designed, is most of the maps seem to have... they're almost like MOBAs in a way. But it seemed to have 3 lanes, if I'm remembering correctly. Usually on most maps. It kind of just, it just depends. And the general idea with Musou games is you try to push in a lane, and then the enemies push into your other lanes. And so you have to stop what you're doing and either switch to another character or depending on what game it is. Sometimes you just are using one character per thing, and that's it. And then run your way back over there to try to help out the battlefield on that side of the map. So you're basically just trying to pressure as many sides as quickly as you can and capture key facilities to waste as much time as you can. And that's how it be. With Hyrule Warriors, the actual Hyrule Warriors, not Age of Calamity, I did not really care for it because, and I didn't play much of it, so I can't speak with any degree of assuredness on this, but I fell off of it relatively quickly because I got this impression that it was trying to pressure me into doing too many things at once. Like, the reason why I care for Musou games at all is because, and I've said this in the past, I like to play games to relax. I don't play them to develop a skill. I don't care about things like that, which is why stuff like, here I'm trying to redraw the face, trying to see what it might look like, another thing. I don't play games for the sake of trying to develop a skill. I just want to turn my brain off. You know, some people will play, you know, fighting games or, you know, character action games or things like that because they want to develop some sort of, like, mechanical skill or, you know, so forth and so on. And feel like that they're accomplishing something by developing, you know, something within video games. I'm not like that at all. I'm mildly competitive in some ways. Actually, these eyes are kind of cute. I don't think I end up keeping them, though. I can't remember. I do go through a lot of iterations on this, though. So I have a little bit of that. No one is... With people, when it comes to personality types and your general desires and everything, there's never like, oh, I'm a pure introvert. I'm a pure extrovert. And then those are the only two things. Like, there's... You know, there's like ambiverts and stuff as well. But even if you would classify yourself as being an introvert, that doesn't mean that you're just like a hardcore introvert that never wants to see anyone ever. Like, I'm an introvert. I think inwardly I lose energy very, very quickly if I'm in a social situation. It feels like work to me. I hate doing it. When people suggest that we go to some sort of public event, I immediately feel tired. I don't want to do it. I can do it, and I might enjoy it a little bit, but it's incredibly exhausting. I get no energy from it whatsoever. But that doesn't mean that I'm a complete introvert in every way. That's just, you know, how it goes. So the same thing with video games, you know. There are some aspects of my personality where I do enjoy developing skills, but it's not as though I'm such a casual player that I never want to be challenged at all. So you get the idea. That's all I'm saying. So in regards to Musou games, I am the same way. I enjoy a little bit, a modicum of challenge, especially if it is optional. So with Hyrule Warriors, it seemed like it really, really wanted to bust your balls all the time about working. Like, it felt like working. I've worked on a line before, like a factory assembly. It's not fun. I hate being on the clock. I despise it. And Hyrule Warriors really had to stick up its ass about that. So if you ever were taking a little bit too much time doing something, you know, just because you wanted to goof off or something like that, because I do a lot of that. You've seen me play games before. I often will intentionally do something that risks my life, or even I will kill myself for really no reason other than it amuses me, and I just want to goof off. Like, that's how I am. So with playing a game that is really demanding about time and getting everything perfect and having no leverage at all, I despise games like that. I don't want to play those. And Hyrule Warriors... Shut up, phone. And Hyrule Warriors had a little bit too much of that going on. It really, really wanted... Like, if you're going down a lane, if I'm remembering this correctly, and you needed to, like, get rid of a captain-style enemy. And I was just sitting there, like, trying to figure that out and trying to understand the system or whatever. And then suddenly, this other lane is failing. You need to get there fast. I'm like, well, I don't want to do that right now. Can't someone else do it? No, someone else can't do it. So you got to stop what you're doing, you got to run over there, take care of that, then come back, maybe, or try to rush through that captain enemy as quickly as you can, and by the time that's done, there's like 3 other things that have popped off because you're taking too much time, or the game is trying to be challenging. I hate it whenever games are like that, when they're trying to give you this challenge of... I know I've talked about this in like the Souls LPs, but there is a concept of like solved gameplay versus dynamic gameplay, I guess. I can't remember what terms I used. But it's when there is... It's whenever there is a solved formula to how to beat a specific game versus a more open-ended approach. Like a game in which here are a bunch of tools. You can use whatever tools that you want to. Feel free to defeat this enemy however you see fit. It is designed in such a way that it can respond to any number of things, but it probably won't be a colossal challenge. Just enjoy yourself. Versus a game that's like, here's, 10 different things, 9 of them are wrong. You need to figure out the exact way to beat this enemy, and there is only one way to beat this enemy, and the game is about figuring out what that way is, and then developing the perfect mechanical approach to this enemy that will allow you to handle them in a perfect way, and that is the way that you defeat the enemy. It's like the distinction between Dark Souls 1 and Sekiro, for example. Like Sekiro is a game in which there is one way to beat an enemy, and you have to be very mechanically precise about it. And if you don't do it that exact way, you fail. Like, you just lose. And once you beat that enemy once, there's not much of a point to doing it again because you already know the exact way to beat them. Unless you just forget it and then come back to the game years later. So, it also becomes an issue of replayability and everything else. In regards to Hyrule Warriors, it was that problem. Like, there was a formulaic, extremely rigid way of playing the game, I guess, until you get to the point where you're probably overpowered, at which point it doesn't matter. And that was the thing that frustrated me about it. I felt like I was not able to enjoy myself because the game was just busting my balls all the time. That was my issue with the Hyrule Warriors. It may be that I was completely wrong and I didn't spend enough time with it. I don't know. Especially playing this game now, it seems like there was probably more to it that I didn't realize at the time. It's just something that I fell off of and I forgot about. That's mainly the thing. So, anyways. So, coming into Age of Calamity, I was afraid that it was going to be another one of those. Because I knew it was the same developers. I didn't know if they still had a stick up their ass or not. But thankfully, this one does not seem to have that problem. This one actually has the opposite problem. Like I was saying in the One Piece game, in that one it was more of a matter of there are like 3 or 2 or 4 lanes or whatever, and it's just a matter of keeping pressure on all of them at the same time. That was the general way that you played that game. In this one, there's almost no pressure at all. And the maps are not lanes. They're usually either incredibly linear. Like, they might wind, but areas are blocked off and you're not allowed to go places until you've beaten other places. So even though they're winding around the map, and all the maps are based off of Breath of the Wild. So they sort of look like the exact same places that you've been to, but you can't climb mountains and you can't climb over obstacles or jump over obstacles. So you're typically stuck on the roads, or you can't climb over hills or anything like that. And there's usually fences or barrels, whatever, that have been placed in the way, because your objective is just getting rid of the armies. So, you get the idea. So the maps are fairly linear, although in some cases you can sort of split and go to different areas, but you're usually not on the clock. Usually you could just AFK for like an hour and it wouldn't matter because the current objective is not a time-based one. You'll get less money, I guess. I think you get like 200 at the beginning of the game, I think 200 rupees for doing missions optimally as far as the speed goes. And the more it goes down, the less money you get. So it's not really a big deal or anything. Like 200 rupees is nothing. So yeah, it's a very weirdly paced game for that reason. But once it becomes timed, there are things where more enemies will spawn next to sort of your commanders in the field, and you can lose outposts, but I've never actually seen it happen. And that's something that might happen if I start playing on very hard. But I have not started doing that. So I guess the point is, the game is fairly easy. There's not a lot going on in terms of difficulty yet for me. Which I don't mind at all. Like, I would much rather the game be like that. But it is unusual how drastically different it seems to be from my perspective, in regards to Hyrule Warriors. Maybe they got feedback where people were like, hey, you're being hard asses. Like, lay the fuck off. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's a fairly different game in that regard. So it's not difficult, really. There are times in which you can tell that it is spiking in difficulty. Especially if you make the mistake of trying to level a bunch of different characters at the same time. Age of Calamity is a fun game. It feels very good to play. Hyrule Warriors was a little bit awkward. It was kind of janky. Some characters didn't really feel good to use. And especially the case of this game, too. Like, the Great Fairy in Hyrule Warriors, I remember, was renowned for being terrible. And in this game, she also is the worst character for whatever reason. I guess the developers just don't like the Great Fairy yet. I don't know. But characters generally feel better in this game. But this game has different problems. And it has very Musou problems. And most of those are systemic. Or, system-based. So I'll try to remember these. I have problems with the game, and most of them come down to the way that characters level, and more specifically how the weapon system is handled. If you remember my Breath of the Wild little gripe on why the weapon durability system doesn't really work, and how that conflicts with the inventory system, this game actually has the exact same issue. Well, not the exact same, but it has a very, very similar issue. Because this game also has an inventory system in a way. In Breath of the Wild, you would use a weapon and, so many times, and then it would break, and you have to find another one. In this game, the weapons never break, but they need to be upgraded. But you still get a large amount of drops, in terms of weapons. So you'll be running out of space in your inventory pretty rapidly, and you'll be doing that quite a bit. And this is going to be a mess trying to explain this to you. So first, let me talk about the character levels. Really, the best way to play this game is to just use Link. Like, use Link, rush to the end game, beat the game as fast as you can, for reasons I'll explain in a bit. As long as he is over-leveled, you should have no real issues. If you try to divert your attention to a bunch of different characters and to waste time grinding rupees to level them up, because you can spend rupees to level characters up, you're going to be wasting a lot of time for really no reason. Whereas if you just beat the game, then suddenly you'll be getting enough resources to actually do things. And that's part of the main problem with the game. Is that, and I've talked about this before, it is a game of going on an adventure to gear up versus a game about gearing up to go on an adventure. And I've talked about this before. I much prefer games in which you gear up to go on an adventure. That is, you find stuff, you prepare, you equip yourself, and then you go do something. Whereas in another kind of game, you would go do something in order, Not Destiny. Is that what it's called? Destiny? Yeah, Destiny 2? I can't remember what the fuck that game's name is. For some reason, my mind blanked on it. That is very much a game like you're going on an adventure to gear up. In other words, you're just grinding the same things over and over and over again because there's no point to the game other than make number go up. And that's all that's going on with it. This game sort of has that problem where you can, like, most of the game is the end game. So if you're spending time like redoing missions, trying to grind stuff, you're just wasting your time. Like you're not going to make any progress. You're just completely wasting your time. You really need to beat the game as quickly as possible to just get that out of the way so that you'll actually have everything unlocked so you can actually start making progress. And a lot of that comes down to the weapon upgrade system. But yeah, as far as characters leveling up goes, just use Link. Like, just use Link, because there's, like, some bosses that you'll get to later on. Like, there's a pivotal moment in the game story, which is really unfortunate. I really wish that I could have felt like I wasn't rushing through the game at this point. But there's a point later, like at the midpoint of the game, where there's a very pivotal moment where you're encountering bosses that are... that normally would be insurmountable, and you can actually feel that, because up until that point the game is fairly easy, and even with my sort of overleveled Link that I had for that moment of the game, I could still feel the jump in difficulty, because the bosses that I was fighting actually became like almost a threat, and it took a while to whittle their health down. So you could feel it in that moment. So the game does have a little bit of difficulty. And more to the point, if I had been wasting all my time trying to keep all my characters leveled by using them equally, then I would have had a much, much worse time. And I may have not been able to have gotten through that mission if I had been using my lower level characters. So anyways, leveling system kind of sucks for that reason. And the cost of actually leveling the characters can get kind of outlandishly high. Because my Link right now is like level 100. Of course, a lot of other characters were level 40 something for a while. And trying to get those up, like even to level 60, took a lot of money. So that's something I'm not even worried about right now. Most of my characters are just like level 50, level 60. And I never even use them. Which is unfortunate because I would like to be able to use them, but you have to outfit them, and you have to level them up, and you have to get used to what their movesets are, and I just don't have the time to do that because of how the game works. Which brings me finally, to the way that weapon crafting, I guess, works. And it is awful. I hate this system. I really hate this system. Oh, I hate this system. Some people have said that they recognize this system from other things. Forgive me, I'm a little bit lightheaded today. So I'm also kind of a little bit out of it. I haven't felt too good for the last few days. The way that the weapons work. You get a weapon, and it's level 1. This is going to take a while to explain. You go into a battle, you get an item drop. And the item drop ends up being a weapon. And that weapon is level 1. But weapons are not all the same. You can get, say, a soldier's broadsword or something. And it can be a bad soldier's broadsword. Like it can have an attack value of 14 or something. And the maximum attack value on weapons differs in many ways. It differs on the weapon. Like there are, I think, like 5 tiers of weapons. And in the... Oh my god. There's like a bad weapon class, and then an okay one, and then like a slightly better one, and then there's like an intermediate one that's sort of okay.
but it's not very good, and there's like 2 weapons inside of it, and then there's the good one. And even if you get like a good weapon drop, it'll probably have a bad attack value. And it isn't until you get to the end game where you even have a remote chance of getting a maximum attack value. And the game won't tell you what the maximum attack value even is. You have to like go online and see what people have found and just guess. Like, I think like the Royal Broadsword has like a maximum standard drop value of 71, if I remember correctly. But also, there are rusted weapons you can get. And if you get a rusted weapon drop, you don't know what it is. And whenever you de-rust it with the blacksmith, it has a higher chance of actually eclipsing the value of any randomly found weapon that you can get. So the Royal Broadsword, while it has a drop value of a maximum of 71 attack, I think, I'm trying to remember, if you get it via a rusted weapon, then you will then potentially get a weapon that has a maximum attack value of 74, I think. I think it's 74. It's either that or 76. So the best weapons in the game are like rusted weapon only, maybe. I don't know if... I think that only applies to like a few weapons too. And again, the game doesn't tell you any of this. You just have to sort of guess. And the way that the UI works, if you leveled up a weapon from like level 1 to like a level 5 or something, you can't look at the weapon and go, what was its base attack value again? Was it better or worse than the thing I just got? And you don't know. There might be something somewhere in the game I'm missing, but as far as I know, there's no way to go back and look and see whether or not the weapon that you're currently using actually is a good roll or not. You just have to guess, or you have to like keep a notepad open and just log what it was. Or what I ended up doing, just never leveling up the weapon. Like if you find a really... I found a Royal Broadsword, so I just did nothing with it for long enough that I could find a... like it was either damage per 100 KO, or it was an attack value, or attack speed up, double plus, and I haven't even told you about this shit yet. And then I put 1 on it, and then I locked it and started leveling it to let myself know, okay, this is something worth using in the future. It's a terrible system. Which brings me to attack seals. So, not even worrying about the fact that the game has this randomized attack value thing going on that it doesn't bother tracking or telling you even exists. In addition to that, it also has seals, weapon seals. And weapon seals are things like attack damage up, regular attack damage up, strong attack up, damage for 100 KOs, sensor drop values on materials, attack damage up if your health is below 30% health. There's tons of them. And they come in different shapes. There's square ones, circles, little stars, bigger stars. I think there's 5 different seal shapes. Oh my god. And if you have 4 or 5, 4... if you have, I think, 4 the same shape, that is maximizing the amount of stats that you get back. Whenever you have 2 of them, it raises both of their stats up. So if you have 1 seal and it gives you 4% attack speed or something, if you have another one that's just like it, you'll get 5% attack speed from both of them, instead of 4% and 4%. You get it? Oh my god. And in addition to that, like I'll just go ahead and tell you, attack speed plus is the best seal in the game. That's what you want on almost every single weapon. There are some exceptions on some rare characters, but almost always it needs to be attack plus. And that is because the game is absolutely obsessed with combos. Like, you do an attack... Like, the reason why is because it takes a long time to whittle an enemy's health down unless you do a special attack that is breaking their weak point, I think it's called. The weak point gauge. And to do that, you need for that weak point gauge to appear. And that usually only appears whenever the enemy either attacks or if you hit them with an iPad attack, like a stasis thing, or like getting them to run into an ice block, or, it just depends. It flashes what you need to do whenever they do an attack, but that's up to the enemy. But the best way to do it, and the easiest way, is to do a combo that will make it appear for like a split second. And in that split second, you hit them with stasis. And now that you hit them with stasis, you can just hit them over and over and over again, and that'll whittle down that bar, since you froze it into a spot where you can actually damage it. And if you have attack speed up, you can just do that so quickly that you can catch them in an infinite stun loop that they can't get out of, as long as you catch them in it. So as a result, that's the reason why attack speed plus is the best thing in the game. Which is incredibly stupid. I hate it. And the developers seem to know it because it almost never appears. It takes forever to find one, which makes the grind on it really bad. And this would not be as bad if not for the fact that you can remove seals, but usually if you put one on there, it's just on there forever. So if you, like what I had to do with the Master Sword, oh my god. Whenever you start upgrading weapons, like from 1 to 30 is the maximum level. And here we are, we're getting up to the final image, because I can't get this out. Whenever you upgrade a weapon, you can get weapons that have no seals on them, which is somewhat rare in a way. And whenever you find them, you can use those to level up the weapon. And because they don't have seals, they won't transfer. But normally, they do have seals on them. And they're really shitty seals. They have like either no plus or only 1 plus, and you don't need those. So as a result, whenever you are trying to level up a weapon, if you use one that has a seal on it at all, it'll transfer onto that weapon, whether you like it or not. So as a result, like by the end of the game, I had most of my weapons on most characters with this junk on them. And you can unlock the ability to remove seals, but it's very costly to remove seals at all. So you don't want to do that. So you end up with this awkward process of trying to find... The optimal way to do this is to find a weapon that has a seal on it that gives additional XP, preferably 250 XP. Then you start putting in weapons that have no seals on them onto that weapon that has 250 XP. And that'll allow you to, once it reaches like level 9 to 12 or so, can raise the experience value of another weapon without actually placing a seal on it. It's a very awkward process, but it's the best way to do it without running into the additional expense of having to spend money and like a lot of resources to remove seals in the first place. So you end up with this giant burgeoning inventory of shit that is just like garbage. Because you're trying to find something that has the right attack value, but you also need to keep weapons that have seals on them, like double plus seals, of normally attack speed plus. But sometimes you also need things, like if you want to make a weapon that is for like gathering materials, you still need those, so you have to keep those around as well. So you would think, well, I'll just make a weapon that has all those seals on it, and then whenever I find the one that has the maximum attack value, I'll just transfer them over. No, you can't do that. Because it only transfers 1 seal, even if the weapon has like 3 or 4 on it. So you end up having to keep like this massive inventory of weapons that aren't leveled up at all, unless they are like XP up weapons. And like if you don't have an XP up weapon, then you still need to keep around the weapons that don't have any seals on them, because you need those to level up the weapons. Like this weapon, it's awful. The seal system is terrible. It's one of the worst upgrade systems I've ever seen in my life. Especially combined with the fact that there's like a limited inventory system. It's terrible. If it had just been, oh yeah, you can remove seals for free. Also, if you have that seal already, like attack speed, up, if you find one that's attack speed up plus, then sure, it'll just upgrade it. No problem. Don't worry about it. Like if it had just been that, there'd been no problem. But apparently this is a Musou issue that has been a part of the genre for so long that the player base has just sort of accepted it. It's a Monster Hunter problem. Like whenever World came out, people started going, why is... Like I even make like a meme image about it. Where it's like, why is this house burning? And all the Monster Hunter players are like, oh, it used to be way worse. And my response is, but it's still on fire. And then they just have question marks over their heads. Like they don't get it. They have change blindness. Like this is a video game problem too. Players get change blindness. They get so used to something being shit for so long that they're just like, yeah, this is how it is. Like it used to be worse. Why aren't you grateful? But the new player knows better because they aren't like indoctrinated to the bullshit. So they don't give a fuck if they say something about it. And so whenever the veteran players from the Musou or whatever game it is are like, stop complaining, then the new player just wants to backhand them across the face and tell them to shut the fuck up because they're being little toxic positivity assholes. Like, shut up and let us fix this for you. You haven't been doing your job over the years because you're such a fanboy, and now it's an issue for everyone else, now that the game is popular. But apparently this is a Musou issue, and the weapon upgrade systems in most of these games have always been awful and toxic because players want something to do in the post-game. So as a result, that is why the game seems to be so leveraged towards forcing you to rush to beat the game so that the actual game can get started, which you might not have any interest in doing because you've already beaten the fucking thing. That's the problem. Anyways. Image came out okay, didn't it? It's fine. Sort of like the game. Like, the image is fine. I'm sure most people are like, no, what are you talking about? It looks amazing. Whatever, man. Stop being so toxically positive towards me. No, sorry. I just really needed to get that negative energy about the seal system out. Oh, it's terrible. But the game is fun. The game is a lot of fun. You just have to tolerate that aspect of it. So anyways, thanks for coming out to this art gripe. Thanks for watching me draw Purah, even if I wasn't particularly happy with the end result. We'll try to do better next time, but, then again, waning health and all. Alright, so, see you maybe next year? I don't know. This might be my last video of the year, but maybe not. Who knows? Anyways, I'll be glad that this horrible year will be over so that the next horrible year can get started. 2021 with all its major political issues that I'm sure that we totally won't have. It'll probably be just a fantastic year. Thanks, everyone. So long. Oh, jeez.